Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you one of my games from the under-16 Glorney tournament from last year. For those of you who don't know what the Glorney is, it's where England plays against Ireland, Wales and Scotland, so all four countries play against each other. And in this game I was playing white against Conor O'Donnell, so I was playing board 1 for England and also against the Irish board 1. And so I started out with e4, c6, knight e2. So this is a fairly tricky line for carry players to come up against. Okay, so d5, e5, and now my opponent played d4, which is an interesting move. Bishop f5 is not so great here, and I get this move played against me time and time again because it's the basic Clarke move here. But the reason now we're putting our knight on e2 is now I'm going knight g3, bishop g6, h4, h6, h5, bishop h7, and now we have this e6 move, which really ties down black's position. So if black doesn't take this pawn, we're going to take on f7, and black's not going to be able to castle, so they take this pawn, and now is an important move. We play d4, which controls the central square, and next move we're going to put our bishop out to d3 and really attack this g6 square, and the king's going to be really weak. So play going to continue from knight f6, bishop d3. Okay, so now if black decides not to take the bishop, then we're going to take and go queen d3 ourselves. So it doesn't really matter what happens here. Takes, and already we're threatening to come into g6. And then the king's going to have to run this way, not going to be able to castle. Okay, so queen d6 is the best move to play here. And actually queen g6 isn't so great now. Because queen g6, the king can just run away, king d8 or something, and now black's really looking to counter with e5 in the middle, or queen b4 check, try to pick up any loose pawns. And so here it's better just to stop black breaking out of e5 and just play f4. Now f4 looks like it's really weakening our pawn structure, but as you'll see in a couple more moves time, this is a really important move. We need to keep this black from playing any e5 ideas, because then this bishop's going to be permanently locked in on f8, as this pawn also can't move without being taken. And also we're going to come up with a plan. Knight d2, knight to f3, and put our knight on e5. And we can get this knight onto this outpost on e5. We're going to have a very, very, very good position. In fact, once we get this knight to e5, I'd just go as far as saying that white's practically winning. Play could continue with knight bd7, we castle to defend this pawns, making way for knight d2. Black may decide to castle, now we can go knight d2, continuing with our plan into e5, and it's very tricky to see what black can play here. His position's very tied up, and okay, so maybe play something like c5, we just go c3, he puts his king out of the way, we could put a knight to f3, and already, we're going to go knight e5 regardless. If they play something like knight g4, we can still go knight e5, and if they have a take on e5, we take back with the f pawn, and now we have a really nice rook, the f file for our rook. And as you'll see later in this series of my Glorney games, I will show you a game where I get this sort of position. So I get another Clarke and I played as knight e2, and my opponent played bishop f5, and I get this sort of position against him, and you'll see how devastating it could be for black. Back to the game, my opponent played d4, so I decided to play d3 here, allowing him to win my e5 pawn with queen check. So he goes ahead and plays this, and now I play knight d2, so after he takes, I can go knight f3, and I'm winning back my pawn on d4, queen d5, knight takes d4, e5, knight b3, bishop g4. Okay, so very basic moves here, just developing pieces. Bishop b2, knight f6, castles, knight bd7, now rook e1. Now the point of rook e1 is now I want to line up threats against the king, and knight takes e5 is a possibility if I'm given the chance here. If black plays something like h6, which is very slow, then just knight takes e5 is going to be winning a pawn for me. so you have to be careful of this. So my opponent played bishop e7, getting out of this any possibilities on this pin. Now I go knight f to d4. Now this is quite a nice move because it means I can swap off bishops, and obviously if he takes this way, which is not the best way to take the piece, I can now take on g4, and now black's gonna have a lot of trouble castling because of the pressure on the c7 bishop. So my opponent played the best move here. He took on e2, and now queen takes e2. So, well, knight takes e2 could also be played, but then after castles this is very equal. And I'm just trying to get the sort of aggressive position here. A lot of tactics coming in, and now you notice how my knight cannot be taken because of this. There'll be a checkmate on e7. So my knight actually stands very. It was a very strong piece on d4 because now it can come into f5. Given a chance where it's going to attack the bishop and this g7 pawn, because it can't be taken, I'm going to be able to go this to f5, or I can even come back to f3 and target the e5 pawn. So my opponent castled, and here I take advantage of the queen being in the middle, and I try to gain some more tempos here. I play c4, controlling this d5 square, and the reason of going c4 is the queen only has one square here. He has to go back to d6 because of how strong these knights are in the centre. And after queen d6, now I can play my knight f5 move, and I'm gaining another tempo because of the attack on the queen. And now once again, black's got very little options. So he has to go queen e6 and protect the bishop on e7. Okay, now things are starting to get really difficult. For black, most of these moves have all been forced after just that knight to d4. Okay, now I'll go queen f3, protecting my knight, and all of a sudden this rook's coming into the game, and knight b to d4 is going to be a threat. This bishop's not going to be able to be protected, his queen's going to get trapped, and this pawn's not going to be able to take because I'll be winning his queen. So my opponent played bishop c5 here. He's trying to allow his queen an escape route back to e8 if needs be, and also just stop any knights coming into d4. He just wants to try to trade off pieces and reduce the tension here. Okay, so I just steadily build with bishop d2. The idea of being now my rooks are connected, and bishop c3 is a threat, where I'm going to be attacking the c5 pawn, or even knight takes c5, bishop b4 might be one idea of exploiting this pin on the rook. Okay, so my opponent played g6 now, and okay, so I guess this move makes sense. He wants to make my knight retreat. Fair enough. Now after knight g3, so I'm prepared to reroute my knight into e4, and my bishop can now also come into h6. Note that when your opponent plays any pawn move, there's a famous saying where every pawn move creates a new weakness. For example, when I played that c4 move to attack his queen, I created a big weakness on d3. If my opponent ever double rooks on a d-file, then this pawn is extremely vulnerable. The same principle applies here. g6, it does get rid of my knight, but now there is weaknesses on all these dark squares around his king. So when your opponent does play a pawn move, do try and see what it was protecting. So as you can see here, this pawn was protecting these dark squares, and now that he's played g6, if you can, then try exploit this and start attacking the weaknesses the pawn's created. Okay, so now my opponent blundered here with queen g4, and although it doesn't look like a blunder at first, there's a really nice sequence of moves here for white, which ultimately wins the game. And I'll let you pause the video now and try find the winning move for white in this position. Okay, so I'm going to continue the video. And okay, so after queen g4, what you got to think about here is black has a lot of weak pieces. This queen's being attacked, this knight's being attacked by the queen, and this bishop's also being attacked. And so you can see this knight's being overloaded. This knight is having to defend both this bishop and this knight, so we can remove this knight from the defense of the f6 or one of these pieces, then we're going to win a piece. So here comes the really nice move, just knight takes c5, and okay, so obviously knight takes c5, then queen takes f6. And yeah, okay, that's pretty obvious. That's just winning a piece for me. However, queen takes f3. This is where you got to calculate, because now queen takes f3. If I simply recapture the queen, and he takes back, and it's very maybe I have a slight advantage, but it's probably equal. But here I play another in-between move. I can now take on d7 instead. Now if I take on d7, yes, I'm queen down, and this queen isn't trapped because the queen can take on d3 as in the game. Obviously knight can't take knight, because after knight takes knight, pawn takes queen, I'm a whole bishop up here, so this is no good. So this queen has to move. If he tries and takes a piece of mine, then I'm going to take here with check and regain the queen, and once again I'm just a whole bishop up in this position. So the queen, my opponent has to keep hold of his queen, and he can't defend this knight whilst keeping his queen protected. You can either go queen g4, but obviously that's terrible because he walks straight into a fork. So the only move here is queen takes d3. And now after queen takes d3, I take the knight with check. And here we can see that, okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 minor pieces for black's queen, which is supposed to be very good, and especially in this sort of position, my knights and bishops are going to be really powerful, as you shall see. King g7. Okay, so now both my bishop and knight being attacked, so I have to do something about this. Knight e4, really nice move, keeping his king. I'm going to create a mating net. If I can get rook e3 in, and now swing the rook over to h3, he's going to be in a lot of trouble here. So my opponent, well, he went and took another pawn. I play bishop c3. Now I'm looking to exploit this diagonal, but yeah, the king could be walking into a couple of discovered checks. Okay, so now my opponent played g5, so he really wants to try and escape. He wants to give his king some squares, basically. Obviously, only rook can't go to e8. This would just be really bad. I just take the rook and I go knight d6, and black can resign. So this pawn's very hard to protect. So yeah, he's lost it. He goes g5. Now I take on e5, and now we see that black has to be very careful where he places his pieces, because I have discovered checks, so the knight and I can the rook. So he goes king g6, gets out the pin, and now I go b3, just attacking his queen, forcing his queen to a bad square. Queen b5. Now knight d6. So once again I'm gaining a tempo on his queen, attacking his queen, and my rook is also protecting my bishop. Now queen b4, rook e4, once again attacking the queen, queen b6, and now h4, and now all of a sudden you see all these pieces, all these pieces surrounding the black king, and already I'm threatening checkmate here with, well, actually I'm not going to tell you what the checkmate threat is. I guess you can work that out. Because after rook a d8, my opponent played rook a d8, and this just loses straight away. There's a checkmate in 2. I sort of gave it away earlier. If you want to find it, just pause the video. White to move and checkmate in 2 here. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward now. And yeah, well, the idea, just think of why I played h4. Why did I go h4? And the reason is now h5 check. And after king h6 is knight f6, knight f5 is checkmate. So yeah, that is game over for black. So it's a really nice mate to get in the end, just using these 2 knights. And yeah, I was quite happy with this game. And well, this is my first game against the Irish board 1. You play in this tournament. You play each opponent twice, one with white and one with black. And you can see my black game with him as well. I'll have that video up shortly. And yeah, so it was a really nice win, I thought. Please let me know what you thought about the game, and if you have any questions, I'll love to hear from you, and I'll answer them as best as I can. So I'll see you guys shortly, and yeah, thanks for watching.